Riley was used to Justin's voice slicing through the field. No matter how flawless her performance, he hunted for flaws. A strap misaligned, a fraction of hesitation, a breath taken at the wrong second. She trained harder, sharper, becoming the standard others followed. Still, he singled her out. That morning, under the open sky, he stepped close and shouted before everyone that she was a liability. The word hit like a strike to the chest. Riley didn't move. Her chin stayed level. Only her pulse betrayed her. Then, Captain Herman Dill arrived, 60 years old, command in his stride. He saw Riley and embraced her, publicly, deliberately. Justin went silent. Because that embrace wasn't comfort, it was recognition. A recognition tied to a name that carried weight inside those walls. A legacy no one there had dared to mention, and a truth about Riley that was about to change the balance of power in that field. What Justin didn't know was that he had just challenged the wrong candidate. And that moment, it was only the beginning. Watch the full story and see how it all started.
The grinder shimmered under the late morning sun, heat rising in slow, wavering currents from the asphalt. Salt hung in the air, drifting in from the Pacific beyond the berm. Riley Carson's palms were raw beneath the chalk, fibers of the rope still burning against her skin as she stepped back into formation. Her breathing was controlled, 4 count in, 4 count out, shoulders squared, chin level. 12 seconds. Officer Justin Brenner stood a pace too close, clipboard tucked under his arm. Oakley's reflecting her own rigid posture back at her. 12 seconds over standard, he said, voice even, carrying across the line. That's not marginal, that's liability. No one moved. The rest of the class stared forward, eyes fixed on a horizon that did not exist. Riley kept her gaze locked at a neutral point over Brenner's shoulder. Sweat traced a line down her temple, caught at her jaw. She did not wipe it away. Brenner's jaw flexed once. A small tick flickered beneath his right eye before he continued. On a real op, 12 seconds gets someone killed. You don't get extra time because you want it. Riley's fingers curled into her fists behind her back, knuckles whitening, then slowly relaxed. "Aye, sir," she answered. Her voice did not waver. The rope climb was a graded event. Standard height, fixed interval, no allowances. She had completed the ascent and descent within safety parameters. 12 seconds. Not a failure. Not a pass worthy of praise. A data point. Brenner treated it like a verdict. He circled once, boots grinding against the asphalt. "You think effort counts?" he asked quietly, close enough that only she could hear. "It doesn't. Numbers count." Riley felt her pulse in her throat but kept her breathing even. She had learned that early control, the autonomic response, deny the body the cascade. She stared ahead, expression neutral, muscles locked at parade rest. A vehicle door shut near the edge of the grinder. The sound cut through the stillness. Brenner's head turned a fraction, irritation flashing across his face before it smoothed into something more guarded. Captain Herman Dill approached without hurry, uniform crisp, gaze scanning the formation with clinical precision. His presence shifted the atmosphere in increments too subtle to name. Conversations that had not existed dissolved completely. Brenner snapped to attention. "Captain on deck." The class echoed the movement in unison. Ehrman's eyes settled on Riley. For a moment, the hardness in his expression eased. He stepped forward and in a gesture that broke the rigid geometry of the grinder, placed a firm hand on her shoulder before pulling her into a brief, controlled embrace. Not indulgent, not theatrical, familiar. "Carson," he said, stepping back. "You carry the name well." A flicker crossed Riley's face, surprise restrained by discipline. "Thank you, sir." Herman turned to Brenner. "Norman Carson was my closest friend," he said, voice steady. "Perfect mission record, never lost a man." The words settled over the formation like additional weight. Brenner's grip tightened on his clipboard. The faint muscle under his eye twitched again, more pronounced this time. "Yes, sir," Brenner replied. Herman's gaze held his for a beat longer than necessary. "Standards matter," he said. "So does judgment." Riley remained motionless, but something shifted behind her eyes. Not relief, not vindication, recognition. The legacy she carried was no longer abstract. It had just entered the chain of command. Herman gave a final nod and stepped back. "Carry on." As he walked away, the grinder seemed smaller, the air denser. Brenner cleared his throat, composure reassembled piece by piece. "Back to work," he ordered. Riley stepped forward with the rest of the class, shoulders set, hands steady despite the sting in her palms. 12 seconds over standard. The number remained. So did she. Herman's office overlooked the training compound, blinds half drawn against the glare. The Pacific was visible in a narrow strip of blue beyond the concrete and steel. Riley stood at attention in front of his desk, boots aligned with the seam in the floor tile, hands locked behind her back. The skin across her palms was split in thin, clean lines from the rope. She did not shift her weight. Herman remained seated for a moment, studying a manila folder open before him. When he finally looked up, his expression had none of the public warmth he had shown on the grinder. It was measured now, deliberate. "Norman Carson," he said, closing the folder with precise fingers, completed every deployment without a single mission compromise. Perfect record. Not because nothing went wrong, because he anticipated what could. Riley held his gaze. A muscle in her jaw tightened, then stilled. "He was my closest friend," Herman continued. "He understood that standards are enforced with consistency, not discretion." He let the word settle. Consistency. The room was quiet except for the muted hum of the HVAC system. Riley's breathing remained even, but her fingers pressed slightly deeper into the fabric of her uniform trousers. "I've reviewed training reports from the last 3 classes," Herman said. 3 female candidates dropped on request. All cited performance deficiencies, all under the same primary instructor. He did not say Brenner's name immediately. He did not need to. Riley's eyes did not flicker, but her throat moved once as she swallowed. "I am not accusing anyone without substantiated evidence," Herman said. "But patterns matter. And I suspect you are not experiencing random friction." He leaned back slightly, folding his hands. "If you believe you are being treated inconsistently with established standards, you will document it. Dates, times, event metrics, witnesses present, direct quotations when possible. Maintain it as a contemporaneous record." "Yes, sir," Riley replied. Her voice was steady, but her pulse beat visibly at the base of her neck. "You will not alter your conduct," Ehrman added. "No deviation from protocol, no emotional reaction. You will meet every published standard. If you fail an event, it will be on the record as performance, not protest." "Aye, sir." Herman's eyes sharpened. "My support exists within regulation. I will not shield you from legitimate evaluation. I will ensure that evaluation is lawful." The distinction was precise. Riley nodded once. "The 3 previous candidates," Herman said, tapping the closed folder, "chose to withdraw rather than escalate. That is their right. It does not establish wrongdoing. It does establish context." Riley felt the weight of that context without conclusion. Her grandfather's name lingered in the air between them, unspoken now, but present. "Understood?" Herman asked. "Yes, sir." He dismissed her with a short nod. Outside, the air carried the sharp scent of salt and diesel. Riley walked back toward the barracks at a controlled pace, neither hurried nor slow. Her expression remained neutral, but her jaw stayed set, teeth barely touching. That night, she opened a small notebook and wrote the date at the top of the page. She recorded the rope climb metric 12 seconds over standard. Brenner's exact phrasing. Liability, the volume of his voice, the number of trainees present. Her handwriting was compact, precise. No commentary, no adjectives, just facts. Over the following days, the entries accumulated. Event times, differential corrections, instances where instruction shifted without prior notice. When Brenner addressed the class collectively, she noted it. When he isolated her, she noted that too. She did not alter her demeanor. She did not seek sympathy. On the grinder, she moved with mechanical efficiency, eyes forward, breath regulated. When Brenner's gaze lingered a fraction too long, she did not look away first. Each evening, she added another line to the record. The entries in Riley's notebook became structured, almost clinical. Date, evolution, published standard, actual time, instructor remarks, witnesses present. She wrote in tight block letters, each line aligned with the margin as if it were a range card. There were no conclusions in the margins, no speculation, only observable facts. On the grinder, Lieutenant Commander Vance appeared without announcement. He stood at the periphery during conditioning drills, arms folded behind his back, eyes moving from stopwatch to candidate to instructor. Master Chief Webb positioned himself near the equipment racks during timed events, silent, expression unreadable beneath his cover. Brenner noticed. The first morning they shadowed him, a brief pause interrupted his cadence before he resumed calling intervals. His right eyelid twitched once, quickly suppressed. He corrected a male trainee for hand placement on the rope, voice even, instructional. When Riley mounted the rope, his jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Maintain leg lock," he called. "Efficiency matters." She completed the climb within standard. He marked his clipboard without comment. Riley recorded that too. 2 days later, a message came through the duty runner. Brenner wanted to see her in his office. She reported at the prescribed time, knocked twice, and waited. Enter. The office was sparse regulation desk, flag in the corner, framed certificates aligned precisely on the wall. Brenner remained seated as she stepped inside. He gestured to the chair opposite him but did not repeat the instruction when she remained standing at attention. "At ease," he said finally. She shifted her stance by regulation inches. "I understand you had a conversation with Captain Dill," Brenner began, tone measured. He tapped a pen against a legal pad once, twice. "About training standards, yes sir. What was discussed?" His eyes held hers, unblinking. "General performance expectations, sir." A faint crease appeared between his brows. "Did you express concerns about my instruction?" Riley kept her face neutral. "I expressed my intent to meet all published standards, sir." The pen stopped tapping. He leaned back slightly, studying her. "You need to understand something, Carson. I hold high potential candidates to enhanced scrutiny." "That's leadership, yes sir." He slid a document across the desk. "Can evaluation form, partially completed. I've noted areas for improvement. Grip endurance, transition speed, composure under corrective feedback." Each phrase was technically defensible, each line written in careful script. "I expect you to sign acknowledging receipt," he said. She read the document without visible reaction. The language was deliberate, calibrated, not overtly punitive, not overtly discriminatory, precise enough to stand in review. Riley signed. The ink did not tremble. As she handed the form back, she understood. He was documenting too, establishing a narrative of heightened standards applied to a high-potential candidate, a defensive record. "Dismissed," Brenner said. Outside, the air felt sharper. Riley walked toward the barracks, replaying the exchange without altering her pace. That night, she logged the meeting in detail. Time, exact phrasing, the evaluation categories cited, the request for signature. She noted that Lieutenant Commander Vance and Master Chief Webb had been present on the grinder earlier that week. The following afternoon, during a break between evolutions, her phone vibrated once. A text from Master Chief Webb. Report to Building 3 at 1600. Special demonstration assignment. Away from primary instructor. No embellishment. No explanation. Riley read the message twice, then locked the screen. Across the grinder, Brenner was speaking to another trainee, posture rigid, voice carrying. She returned her phone to her pocket and stepped back into formation, shoulders squared. The notebook would gain another entry that night. Building 3 smelled faintly of rubber matting and machine oil. A small group of incoming female candidates stood in a straight line near the far wall, uniforms crisp, eyes alert, trying not to betray the weight of where they were. Master Chief Webb waited near the equipment layout, arms folded behind his back. Riley reported at 1600 sharp. At ease, Webb said. His gaze assessed her hands briefly, the healing abrasions across her palms. You'll conduct the demonstration. Standard rope ascent. Obstacle transition. Timed. Yes, Master Chief. The candidate's attention fixed on her as she stepped forward. There was no commentary in their faces, only calculation. Riley mounted the rope on command. Her grip was economical, legs locking with mechanical precision. She ascended in measured pulls, hips close to the line, conserving motion. At the top, she touched the beam, pivoted, and descended under control. Boots hit the mat without a stagger. She transitioned immediately to the obstacle frame, balance beam, cargo net, wall. Each movement was clean, no wasted energy, no hesitation at the edges. Her breathing remained steady, diaphragm controlled, shoulders relaxed despite the strain. Webb clicked his stopwatch and lowered it without expression. Within standard, he said. Riley stepped back into position, face composed. Sweat gathered at her collarbone but did not alter her posture. The candidates watched with an intensity that bordered on stillness. No one spoke. After dismissing them, Webb gestured for Riley to remain. He removed a folded document from a manila envelope and held it between two fingers. Primary instructor submitted a request to recycle you to Phase 1, he said. His tone did not rise. Cited performance volatility. Riley's eyes sharpened a fraction. Understood, Master Chief. Captain Dill denied it. Webb's jaw set slightly as he replaced the paper in the envelope. Insufficient basis. A muscle moved along Riley's cheekbone and stilled. Webb studied her for a moment longer. You continue to meet published standards. That is what will matter. Yes, Master Chief. Outside, near the barracks, Danny Chun approached her after evening chow. He glanced once over his shoulder before speaking, thumb hooked under the strap of his pack. Got something you should see, he said quietly. He held out his phone. On the screen, a group chat scrolled names of trainees, timestamps, messages describing specific evolutions, comments noting discrepancies in corrective actions, references to Riley's rope climb, to extended corrective PT assigned only to her, to phrasing Brenner used in front of the class. Riley read without touching the device. Her expression did not change, but her breathing slowed deliberately. They've noticed, Danny said. His voice was low, controlled. Not just me. She looked up at him. You're willing to put your name to it? Danny's jaw tightened. He nodded once. If it comes to that. The offer hung between them, heavy with implication. Testimony carried consequences inside a tight formation. Thank you, Riley said. The words were simple, unadorned. Danny slid the phone back into his pocket. Just make sure it's done right. Later that evening, her phone vibrated again. A message from Webb. Report to Captain Dill 0800. Bring documentation. Riley sat on the edge of her rack, notebook open across her knee. The pages were filled now dates, metrics, verbatim remarks, witnesses identified. She turned each page slowly, checking for omissions. No commentary, no emotion, only record. In the quiet of the barracks, the distant sound of surf filtered through the open window. She closed the notebook carefully and aligned it with the edge of her locker. Tomorrow, it would leave her hands and enter the chain of command. She lay back without removing her boots, eyes open in the dim light, rehearsing nothing, breathing steady, pulse controlled. At 0800, Riley stood outside Captain Hermandill's office with a 15-page document secured in a plain folder. The pages were aligned, corners squared. Her name and class number were printed at the top of the first sheet. She knocked once. Enter. Herman sat at the head of a small conference table. Lieutenant Commander Vance occupied a chair to his right, posture upright, hands resting on a legal pad. Master Chief Webb stood near the window, arms folded behind his back. The blinds were drawn halfway, cutting the morning light into hard lines across the table. Riley stepped forward and placed the folder in front of Herman. "Sir." He opened it without comment. The sound of paper turning filled the room. Each page contained dates, training evolutions, objective metrics, verbatim statements attributed to Officer Justin Brenner, and names of witnesses present. No adjectives, no conclusions. Only recorded fact. Vance leaned slightly closer, scanning entries with a measured gaze. Webb did not move, but his jaw tightened as he read over Herman's shoulder. "How many copies exist?" Vance asked. "One, sir," Riley replied. "This original." Herman finished the final page and closed the folder carefully. He rested his palm on it for a moment before looking at her. "You understand," he said, voice even, "that once this becomes a formal complaint under the Uniform Code of Military Justice and applicable training command regulations, it will initiate an administrative investigation." "Yes, sir." "There will be interviews," Vance added. "Sworn statements. Potential cross-examination. Your performance record will be scrutinized in parallel." Riley's chin lifted a fraction. "Understood, sir." Webb stepped forward. "You will continue training as scheduled. No deviation, no commentary to peers. Aye, Master Chief." Herman exchanged a brief glance with Vance. "You are not the only data point," he said. "A parallel inquiry is already underway." Riley's eyes flickered once. 3 prior candidates, Herman continued, all withdrew from training under Officer Brenner's instruction cycle. They have agreed to provide sworn testimony if required. The words settled with weight. Riley's fingers pressed lightly against the seam of her trousers, then released. "You are prepared to proceed?" Vance asked. "Yes, sir." Herman nodded once. "Very well. This will be documented as a formal complaint, effective immediately." At 0858, Officer Brenner was notified to report to Herman's office at 0900. Riley was not present. She stood in formation on the grinder when he crossed the asphalt toward headquarters, uniform immaculate, stride controlled. He returned 40 minutes later accompanied by Lieutenant Commander Vance. His face was composed, but the muscle beneath his right eye pulsed visibly. He did not address the class. Webb stepped forward instead. "Effective immediately, Officer Brenner is relieved of direct training duties pending administrative review." A faint shift moved through the formation boots adjusting against asphalt, a breath drawn and held. No one spoke. Brenner's gaze swept the line once. It paused on Riley for less than a second before moving on. His jaw flexed, then stilled. "Training will continue under interim supervision," Webb said. "Standards remain unchanged." The announcement traveled through the compound before noon. By evening chow, conversations had divided along quiet fault lines. At one table, trainees leaned close, voices lowered, glancing toward Riley between sentences. At another, chairs were angled away from her. Amber Price did not approach. Danny Chun met Riley's eyes once across the room and gave a slight nod before returning to his meal. Riley kept her posture straight, movements economical. She ate without hurry, without lingering. When she rose to return her tray, 2 conversations stopped mid-sentence. Outside, the wind carried the scent of salt and jet fuel across the base. The grinder lights flickered on as dusk settled. Riley stood alone for a moment at the edge of the asphalt, shoulders squared, breathing steady. The process had begun. It would not reverse. The division did not announce itself with raised voices. It showed in spacing. At morning muster, the line closed ranks by inches that had not been there before. In the locker room, conversations shifted when Riley stepped inside. Words cut short mid-sentence. Amber Price approached her near the water coolers after PT. Her uniform was damp at the collar, hair pulled tight, jaw set with controlled restraint. "You know what they're saying," Amber said, keeping her voice low. Her eyes did not leave Riley's face. "That you're making it harder for the rest of us." Riley unscrewed the cap of her bottle slowly. "Harder how?" Amber's fingers tightened around her own bottle, plastic creasing under pressure. "By playing the gender card." The phrase came out clipped, as if rehearsed and resented at the same time. "If instructors start walking on eggshells, it won't be because we earned it." Riley held her gaze. No flare of anger crossed her features. "Standards haven't changed," she said evenly. "That's not how it looks," Amber replied. A muscle jumped along her cheek. "You file a complaint, and suddenly he's removed. People talk." "They always do," Riley said. Amber exhaled through her nose, sharp and controlled. For a moment, it seemed she might say more. Instead, she gave a short nod and stepped back, distance restored by choice. Later that afternoon, Riley passed a cluster of trainees near the barracks. Danny Chun stood at the edge of the group, silent. Two others spoke in low tones. "He was tough on everyone," one said. "That's the job. Not like that," another countered. "You saw the rope climb." Riley did not slow her pace. The words followed her anyway. Her phone vibrated in her pocket that evening. A message from Officer Brenner. "Request private meeting to clear the air." She stared at the screen, thumb hovering. No rank in the message, no formal language, just the request. A second vibration came minutes later. "Master Chief Webb, do not meet alone. Any contact goes through chain of command." Riley locked the screen and slid the phone back into her pocket. The sky was already darkening, horizon bleeding into the Pacific. She stepped outside to clear her head, boots carrying her along the path toward the pier without conscious decision. The wooden planks creaked faintly under her weight. Salt wind lifted strands of hair at her temples. At the far end, a solitary figure stood with his back to the water. Brenner turned as she approached. His posture was rigid, but his hands were empty. No clipboard, no pen. The ocean moved behind him in steady rhythm. "I didn't expect you to come," he said. "I didn't agree to a meeting," Riley replied. Her voice was level. He nodded once, jaw tightening before he spoke again. "I pushed you, harder than the others." The admission hung between them. "You have potential," he continued. "Top tier. But potential under stress fractures. I needed to see where yours would break." Riley's eyes did not leave his. The wind pressed her uniform against her frame, fabric snapping lightly at the sleeves. "You documented everything," Brenner said. It was not a question. A faint tick surfaced beneath his right eye before he mastered it. "You think I was targeting you?" "I documented what occurred," she answered. He looked past her for a moment, toward the darkened base. "The teams don't care about perception. They care about performance. I was preparing you." "For what?" she asked. "For the reality that no one will cushion you out there." Silence stretched, filled only by surf-striking pylons below. His shoulders lowered a fraction. "If I misjudged my approach, that's on me. But my intent was operational readiness, not discrimination." The words settled heavily. Riley felt a flicker of something she had not allowed herself: uncertainty, brief and unwelcome. His tone was controlled, not defensive, measured. "I didn't request special treatment," she said. "I know," he replied. Footsteps sounded faintly at the far end of the pier. Webb's silhouette appeared against the lights of the shore, pace steady. Brenner's jaw tightened again as he saw him. "This conversation never happened," he said quietly. "It just did," Riley answered. Webb stopped a few feet away, gaze moving from Brenner to Riley without expression. "Candidate Carson," he said. "You were advised." "Yes, Master Chief." Brenner stepped back, distance reestablished. "Understood." Riley turned toward shore, the doubt still present but contained. The ocean continued its rhythm behind her, indifferent. The legal office was colder than the training compound, air-conditioned to a steady, impersonal temperature. Riley sat upright at the conference table, hands resting flat against her thighs. A digital recorder sat between her and JAG Commander Rhodes, its red light steady. "State your full name and class designation for the record," Rhodes said. His uniform was immaculate, ribbons aligned with mathematical precision. His tone carried no inflection beyond procedure. "Riley Carson." "Class designation 312, she replied. Rhodes nodded once and administered the oath. Riley raised her right hand. Her fingers did not tremble. "I do," she said when prompted. The questioning moved chronologically: rope climb metrics, corrective physical training assignments, verbatim remarks, dates. Rhodes referred to her documentation, cross-checking entries against training logs already in evidence. "You allege differential treatment based on gender," Rhodes said, eyes steady. "On what objective basis?" Comparable performance metrics were not met with comparable corrective measures for male trainees, Riley answered. "Documented instances are reflected on pages 4 through 9. Rhodes flipped pages without haste. "Did Officer Brenner ever use explicitly gendered language?" "No, sir." "Did he articulate a training philosophy of enhanced scrutiny for hypotential candidates?" "Yes, sir." "And were male candidates ever described as hypotential?" "Yes, sir." Rhodes paused. "Were those candidates subjected to the same frequency and intensity of corrective action?" "No, sir." The recorder captured each syllable. Rhodes shifted topics. "On the evening of the peer encounter, did you receive a direct message from Officer Brenner requesting a private meeting?" "Yes, sir." "Were you advised by Master Chief Webb not to meet alone?" "Yes, sir." "And you proceeded?" "I did not agree to a meeting. I encountered him on the pier." Rhodes's gaze sharpened slightly. "During that encounter, did he discuss the pending complaint?" "Yes, sir." "Did he characterize his conduct as preparatory rather than discriminatory?" "Yes, sir." Rhodes folded his hands. "Under Article 131B considerations and applicable command guidance, contacting a complainant outside formal channels during an active administrative inquiry may constitute witness tampering. You understand that?" "Yes, sir." There was no satisfaction in her expression. Only acknowledgement. Danny Chun testified later that afternoon. Riley remained seated along the wall, eyes forward. Danny's posture was straight, but his fingers flexed once before he clasped them behind his back. "Officer Brenner assisted you during a timed swim evolution?" Rhodes asked. "Yes, sir." "Describe the interaction." He corrected my stroke mechanics, calmly. "Specific feedback. No public reprimand. Was the correction effective?" "Yes, sir." Rhodes glanced toward Riley briefly, then back to Danny. "So he demonstrated the capacity to mentor without hostility?" "Yes, sir." The implications settled in the room without being spoken. Knowledge of proper conduct. Selective deviation. After the testimony concluded, Riley was dismissed. Captain Herman Dill requested she report to his office. The folder he placed on his desk was thicker than the one she had submitted weeks earlier. The cover bore declassification markings, portions redacted in black bars. "Norman Carson's service record," Ehrman said. Riley stepped closer. The pages detailed deployments, After-action reports, commendations. The Navy Cross citation lay near the center, language precise, restrained. "He never lost a man," Herman said quietly. "Not because he drove them into the ground, because he knew when to absorb pressure himself." Riley's eyes moved across a line in an after-action summary. Team integrity preserved under extreme operational stress. He believed mission success included protecting your team, Herman continued, and knowing when to ask for help through proper channels. Riley closed the folder gently. The doubt from the peer remained, but it had narrowed. "Intent does not negate policy," Herman said, "and policy exists to protect the mission." Riley nodded once. Outside, the grinder lights cut through the evening haze. Training continued. Standards remained. The notification came through official channels, formatted in precise administrative language. The investigation had concluded. Substantiated findings, discriminatory treatment, creation of a hostile training environment, and improper contact with a complainant during an active inquiry. Recommended disposition, Board of Inquiry. Riley read the memorandum once, then again, standing outside the administrative building. The wind off the Pacific lifted the corner of the page before she steadied it with her thumb. The words were clinical, devoid of commentary. Violations cited, regulations referenced, no adjectives. On the grinder, Master Chief Webb addressed the class at morning formation. "Effective immediately," he said, voice carrying cleanly across the asphalt. "Training cadre adjustments are permanent. A new primary instructor has been assigned." No one asked questions. The formation remained rigid, boots aligned, eyes forward. Riley felt the weight of glances without turning her head. A few trainees shifted closer in the ranks over the next days, subtle, unspoken alignment. Danny Chun fell into step beside her during a timed run, maintaining pace without comment. Others kept their distance, conversations lowering when she approached. Amber Price passed her near the equipment racks, hesitated for half a second, then gave a short nod. It was not warmth. It was acknowledgement. Officer Justin Brenner no longer appeared on the grinder. Word spread that he would face a board of inquiry, an administrative proceeding that could recommend separation from naval service. The phrase moved through the compound with measured gravity. Careers did not recover easily from that trajectory. By midweek, the first media inquiry reached the command. It did not reference Riley by name. It referenced allegations of bias within elite military training. The language was cautious, but pointed. Brenner's civilian attorney released a statement the following day. Portions were quoted in online articles circulating quietly among trainees' phones. The phrasing suggested overcorrection, a climate of hypersensitivity, a witch hunt against demanding instructors. Select details from Riley's performance evaluations were included. References to performance volatility, enhanced scrutiny, stripped of context. Riley read the excerpts on Danny's phone during the evening downtime. Her face did not change, but her jaw set tighter with each line. "They're framing it," Danny said quietly. "They're advocating," she replied. The difference mattered. The next morning, a public affairs officer visited the compound. Questions were directed through the chain of command. No trainees were authorized to comment. The instruction was explicit. Riley felt the scrutiny shift from internal to external. On the grinder, when she mounted the rope, she sensed more than the usual observation. Cameras were not present, but the awareness of narrative had entered the perimeter. She climbed within standard, descended without pause, landed clean. The new instructor corrected her hand placement once, tone neutral, identical to the correction given to the trainee before her. Riley acknowledged with a crisp eye. At chow, 2 trainees sat beside her without invitation. One spoke quietly about the board process, repeating what he had heard about administrative law standards. Another kept his eyes forward, offering silent proximity. Across the room, a cluster of others leaned close over a phone screen, expressions guarded. Riley finished her meal, movements deliberate. Outside, the sky had turned the flat gray of approaching marine layer. The base lights flickered on early. The investigation's findings were complete. The next phase would unfold in a different room, under oath, before a panel. Riley stood at the edge of the grinder for a moment before evening muster, shoulders squared against the wind. The ocean moved beyond the berm, steady, indifferent to headlines. 6 months later, the Pacific carried the same steel-gray horizon, indifferent and exacting. The graduation formation stood aligned on the grinder, dress whites immaculate, tridents newly pinned above steady hearts. Riley held her posture at attention, chin level, shoulders locked. Salt air traced along the pier, settling against polished brass and pressed fabric. She had finished in the top third of her class. The ranking had been posted without ceremony, a list secured to a board outside the administrative office. She had read it once, eyes moving with disciplined restraint, then stepped aside for the next candidate. No smile, only a single, controlled exhale through her nose. Herman approached after the formal dismissal. His gait was measured, hands clasped behind his back until he stopped in front of her. For a moment, he said nothing. His gaze traveled to the insignia on her chest, then back to her face. A faint tightening appeared at the corner of his eyes before he reached into a small presentation case. Inside, cushioned in dark velvet, rested the Navy Cross. The metal caught the afternoon light, its edges sharp, its ribbon untouched by time. Norman's will had been explicit. The decoration would pass to Riley upon successful completion of SEAL training. Herman lifted it with deliberate care, as though handling evidence in a chain of custody transfer. He placed it in her hands without flourish. Her fingers closed around the metal. The weight settled into her palms, dense, unyielding. For a fraction of a second, her throat moved as she swallowed. She did not look away. Across the compound, Brenner's name no longer appeared on any roster. His discharge had been executed through formal channels, separation orders signed and processed. Word circulated, precise and unsentimental. He was working private security. No uniform, no command authority, a civilian credential where a commission had once stood. 3 of the women who had previously withdrawn from training had reapplied. Their packets had moved through medical reevaluation, psychological screening, and physical qualification. They had been accepted. Riley had seen them at a distance during a conditioning evolution back straight, strides deliberate. No words exchanged. None required. Her assignment orders arrived the following week. A SEAL team with an operational tempo measured in deployments, not training cycles. Her reputation had preceded her documented integrity, substantiated resilience under administrative scrutiny. In the team room, introductions were brief. Handshakes firm, eyes assessing, not unkind. On the evening before her first deployment, she stood alone on the same pier where Brenner had once confronted her. The wood beneath her boots was weathered, grain raised by years of salt and sun. The ocean stretched forward, vast and unreadable. Wind pressed against her uniform blouse, tugging lightly at the fabric as if testing its hold. She clasped her hands behind her back. Her breathing followed a steady 4-count rhythm, the cadence drilled into her during dive phases. No tremor reached her fingers. Only the quiet awareness of movement ahead. Aircraft manifests, mission briefs, coordinates plotted over distant terrain. Her phone vibrated once. Danny's message appeared on the screen. "Your grandfather would be proud." She read it without shifting her stance. The corner of her mouth moved, barely perceptible, a controlled acknowledgement rather than a smile. Her thumbs hovered for a second before she typed her reply. "So would yours." She slipped the phone back into her pocket and returned her gaze to the horizon. The water reflected the last light of day, fractured silver against darkening blue. Somewhere beyond that line waited her first deployment. The next evaluation, not written on paper, but measured in action. She remained there until the sun lowered fully, posture unwavering, the Navy Cross secured in her quarters. the trident steady over her heart. If you would like to follow the continuation of Riley's journey, consider subscribing to the channel. The Board of Inquiry convened in a sterile hearing room lined with flags and framed citations. The recorder's red light blinked to life, capturing every word for the official transcript. Brenner sat at the respondent's table in full dress uniform, ribbons aligned with mechanical precision. A faint pulse flickered at his temple. His jaw remained set, molars grinding in measured cadence. The first witness appeared on the monitor via secure video conference. Her image carried the slight delay of encrypted transmission. She spoke in steady intervals, recounting corrective training sessions that extended beyond published standards. Remedial drills assigned without documented deficiency. Performance evaluations marked with language absent from male counterparts' files. Her voice did not waver, but her fingers tightened around a pen until the knuckles blanched white. When she described being isolated from her unit during critical exercises, Brenner's eyelid twitched once. He did not look at the screen. The second and third witnesses followed. Their testimonies aligned in structure and detail after action reports amended without basis. Counseling statements issued without prior verbal guidance. Physical assessments repeated under command discretion while male trainees advanced. The board members exchanged brief glances over annotated binders. Pages turned with the dry friction of paper against paper. The pattern was clinical, repetitive, documented. Danny testified in person. He stood upright, shoulders squared, service dress immaculate. His voice carried the cadence of someone accustomed to briefing superiors. He confirmed differential enforcement of standards. He cited dates, times, specific evolutions. 4 other male trainees echoed his account, each statement reinforcing the same operational discrepancy. Their testimony was devoid of embellishment. Facts were delivered like coordinates on a grid. Brenner's defense counsel rose, adjusting his cufflinks with deliberate calm. He argued that Brenner applied enhanced standards to high-potential candidates to prepare them for leadership billets. He framed the remedial actions as merit-based rigor, not discrimination. His tone remained even, almost academic. Yet a bead of perspiration traced the edge of his hairline as the board president requested the comparative training logs. The records were entered into evidence. Spreadsheets projected onto the screen displayed columns of names, performance metrics, remedial assignments. The disparities were not subtle. Only female trainees had been subjected to repeated discretionary evaluations beyond baseline protocol. Only their files contained identical phrasing in adverse remarks. The room settled into a heavy stillness, broken only by the hum of fluorescent lights. Riley took the stand last. She placed her hand on the regulation Bible, swore the oath, and sat with her spine straight against the chair. Her breathing remained measured. She answered each question without inflection, citing documented incidents, referencing specific directives, identifying deviations from published training doctrine. When asked about intent, she did not speculate. She described actions. Her gaze never shifted toward Brenner. He watched her then, expression carved from stone. His fingers curled into his palm, nails pressing crescents into skin. No objection interrupted her testimony. The board recessed briefly before returning with findings. The presiding officer read the determinations in formal cadence: discriminatory treatment, creation of a hostile training environment, witness tampering, multiple violations of the Uniform Code. The recommendation was clear: removal from service. Brenner's face remained rigid, but the muscle along his jaw fluttered once before stilling. His counsel leaned close, whispering in controlled urgency. Riley remained seated, hands folded loosely in her lap. She exhaled through her nose, slow and silent, as the recorder captured the final adjournment. The red light blinked off.